everyone, it's Zane Banks here, and we're going to talk about how to make your blues playing jazzy. So the simple answer to that is just use chromatic notes. What is chromaticism, I hear you say? I'm going to tell you. Chromaticism literally just means color. So you're bringing notes that don't belong in the key or the scale that you're using, and you're just importing them. However, you just have to know how to use them. And yes, there's a lot of books on the theory behind chromaticism, but it isn't as complicated as sometimes it presents itself when you read it. If you've got a pair of ears and you can hear music and you've grown up listening to, Western popular music, then your ears will guide you through it. Let's just talk about it in the context of, say, A minor blues. If you know your minor pentatonic shape, what you want to try and do then is know which notes of that scale come from an A minor chord. For example, we're going to need an A. That's very important. The third of a chord is what defines it as being major or minor. So in this case, it's this note, the C. So you want to know them. If we look at each position, here we're studying what's known as the E shape out of the cage system. So we need to know where all the A's are, where all the C's are. Then the next note would be an E, that's the fifth degree of the chord. And anything I talk about here, I would apply to the other positions on the fretboard so that you're not locked into just one place. Once you know where they live, these notes of the triad, then you know where your sort of safe resolution points are. Most lines, when they sort of get to their ultimate resolution point, are going to return to a chord tone. A chord tone is one of the 1, 3, 5. And in jazz stuff, the seventh is also a cool place to return to. In the context of A minor, the seventh is going to be a G, so that would be this note here or this note here. There are other notes in the scale that are being used. For example, we have a D, which is the fourth, and that note belongs in the key of A minor, but it's not one of the really strong notes. So when we play that D, it wants to go back down to a C, or it wants to go up to an E. So I would first of all experiment with just hearing the difference between the notes from the arpeggio, and then the actual minor pentatonic scale. Playing the blues scale, which is going to add an extra note, the flat 5. And then once you can hear what those different additional notes do, it's very similar to, say, cooking. Like if you're making a soup and you put just a pinch of salt in, if you can't notice a difference, you might put another one and go, oh, okay, I notice it with 2 bits of salt. Or you put a little bit of paprika in, you put a little bit of chili. You notice that different from what your base soup mix is, if it's, say, pumpkin soup. So you want to know what you're dealing with initially before you start adding extra notes. And these notes from the arpeggio that is the essence of what A minor is. It's very important to know that and to hear it. Then maybe take a blues lick that you're very familiar with, something like, and look at the notes. You really do need to know what the notes are that you're playing. There's only 6 of them in the blues scale or 5 in the pentatonic scale, so it's not hard to work out. And then once you understand what they are, then you can start getting kind of creative with things. So say, for example, with this blues lick we just looked at, if I want to make that kind of interesting with chromatic notes, there are 2 approaches that I can kind of take, and this doesn't require any kind of high-level theoretical knowledge. The first one is I can use a chromatic note on either side of a stable note. So the stable notes are the chord tones we talked about before, and I can just very briefly go to one of these chromatic notes and then go back. Some will sound better than others, and again, just use your ear. Your ear will guide you through this. And the other approach is you could go from one stable note all the way down to another stable note, going through a series of chromatic notes. You don't want to stick around on a chromatic note because it's going to sound kind of unpleasant and tense. But if you move through it quickly, then all of a sudden you create excitement, you create drama, you create tension. And that is ultimately what music is all about, tension and release. great players, great improvisers are just really good at building up that tension, maintaining it to the point where people really want to hear a resolution, and then they give them a resolution. So for example, when we start on, say, the tonic, you could dip down to a G sharp. Now G sharp isn't in the key of A, like, you know, A minor pentatonic. So you could get, it sounds kind of cool. You get this momentary clash. Then when we go up to the third, we could use another note from the scale. We're going to add a note here. This is the ninth, also known as the second degree. And then we could go straight up to the fourth for our bend. Or we could continue this chromatic motion and move up and include the major third. Again, don't stick around on that note, but if you go quickly, it'll sound cool. And our destination is that fifth. Then we do the bend. Now up here you can do a similar thing to what you did at the beginning. Or you could go down to the ninth, down to the seventh, which is that G sharp, up to the ninth. So now we're sort of creating this little area around our target note, which is the tonic. It's not hard to do at all, and theoretically it's very simple. We're just avoiding our target note and therefore creating more drama and more tension, and then we release it. Now when we get to this seventh here, we could take that chromatically all the way down to the and then we could bend back down to the fourth. Our target note is going to be the minor third, so we could go chromatically down. We're just filling in the gaps, or we could do a jazz thing where we encircle and enclose a note. We get, and then we might do a similar thing to what we did up here on the high E string, where we're going to go on either side, almost like lasso, as if it was like, you know, cowboys or something, lasso the note. So we get. So we've taken a lick that otherwise would have just been a standard Stevie Ray Vaughan lick, and there's nothing wrong with that lick at all, but we've turned it into this. And it's not hard to do. Like, just take any lick or look at the notes in the scale and just join them chromatically and rest on one of those resolution points. You just have to know where those resolution points are. Then you can start to get a little bit more creative with the order that you might use. Sometimes you get jazz cats where they'll go to a target note and they will just chromatically go up 4 semitones and back to it. So if you're on a tonic, they might do and all that's doing is just adding color and tension to this tonic here. It sort of doesn't theoretically or harmonically have any function other than it's just a bit of tinsel. Charlie Parker does it all the time when you hear him play sort of bebop licks. Those kind of things. So look, just experiment. Take a blues lick and add a couple of the notes that don't come from that key, but use that method of either going quickly to the note on either side of a safe note and resolving it back, or find your 2 resolution points and just fill in the gaps and use your ear. The gravitational pull of a strong tonal note of the key that you're in is going to pull your line into a correct resolution, and if it doesn't get to that point, it's just going to sound tense, not ideal. If you've got any questions, please leave a comment. Follow us on Rev Dr. Z on Instagram. Please hit subscribe. I'll do some more videos on how to make your jazz blues playing a little bit more sophisticated.